how should I choose my artist name? There's one thing that I'll first of all mention, and that's spelling, right? You've got to bear in mind that people are going to have to type this in, right? So if you've got some artist name that is like ridiculous spelling that no person will be able to spell, let's say discombobulate, thinking of that if you had to write that in, imagine if you've got young fans that have got to type that into YouTube. Let's say DJ discombobulate, DISCOM bobulate, who knows, right? That's what I'm getting at there, is that when you have to search these things, it's hard to search because you can't spell it. So always got to bear that in mind, that it's a spelling thing. The other thing in terms of for spelling wise is think as well is things like, for us when we started Audio Animals, we specifically targeted a word that starts with A. We required a word that starts with A because when it comes to lists of things, we're at the top in terms of any sort of list. So think that's one thing to think about. For me personally, if you're a DJ, try and use, like a DJ producer, anything like that, especially a vocalist. First of all, try and use your first name, right? Try and use your actual name or a name. A lot of artists do have like they go under someone else's sort of name. It's not their real name, and that's fine. But see if your name works. And the thing is you will think, oh, my name don't work, but that's because you know your name. That's not like you know your name. You're used to your name. It's like words, it doesn't, like, if it does work, your name will work, but it just doesn't seem to you that it will work. It will, to everyone else, it will be a great name, but you can shorten your artist name or your real name into something that works. But these are just little things that you just take into account when choosing an artist name. I mean, it's so hard to choose an artist name. The other thing to do is when you are going through trying to choose your name, what you want to be called, and what stage name, whatever, search other people's names, right? Search, if you come up with a great name, right? So you come up with this great name, do the courteous thing and search, I don't know, search the internet for that name that you want to take, because you can't, for instance, just be like, yeah, that's what we're going to be, I'm going to be called that, but someone else is called that. Nah, sorry, don't matter, I'm going to be called that now. It's like, that's not going to go down well. Plus as well is things like when someone searches, say you become great, but there's someone else who's the original of your name, they're going to get all your traction. They could get mistaken, vice versa. It's just best to come up with something unique, some sort of unique name that's not just the same as someone else's. Even if that's why you've got spelling, that some people spell certain things differently, and yeah, you can do that, but then you've got the whole spelling and grammar thing, and it's really tricky to think up a name. Like we had a hard time thinking up like business names. We've got a business that we want to start up, and we at the moment, and we're trying to think of that name, and it is such a important part as an artist as well. It's really important to get a good name. Now you think of all the names of DJs that are, DJs, producers, vocalists that are out there that have, you look at and you go, yeah, that's a great name, and that's it's not the reason they succeed, but it's got a little bit to do with why they succeed. Now, bear this in mind as well, right? Look towards the future. Look at the long game, right? You're headlining. Let's say for argument's sake, you're headlining a massive festival. Your name is at the top of the list. You're at the top, big writing on the top of the headline act. Is the name you're thinking of going to want to be at the top of? Is it going to be accepted at the top of that list? Is it something that's serious? Is it something that can be at the top of a list? Of a kind of headliner. Is it a headliner's name? That's what you've got to also think, because promoters will, if you've got a stupid name, if you've got a real stupid name, promoters aren't going to want to put your name on that list because it's a stupid name. I've seen some really, really stupid ones over the years, and there are, and a lot of the time from people that I've spoke to that know they have bad names and they don't like their names, but they had it from a young age and it's grown with them and they have to stick with it. I know a top DJ who hates his name, but he has to stick with it because he's a top DJ and he can't just change his name. So once you do pick a name and you do settle with it, you've got to really be happy with it, because you are going to have to, if you do well with this sort of artist name, you are going to have to keep using that name for a long period of time. So yeah, there's a few things that, from my perspective of what I've gathered through the years, knowing and talking with different artists, producers, DJs. These are all the little things that you do come across, and the last one is, here's a really good one to do, is when you do think of a name, check you can get the .com or the .co.uk or whatever, get the website domain. Check you can pick up the website domain, because let's say you wanted, let's say for instance, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but let's say for instance you wanted just a really generic name like Leveler. Say let's just argument's sake, Leveler. I can guarantee you Leveler.com is taken, Leveler.co.uk is taken. So you're then going to have to think of something. You either change the name to something else or you put audio after the end of it, or things like that. So that's one thing to bear in mind, because the website, the whole thing about the website is the website's really important to have. If you have a website, you can kind of bring everybody into a website. If you get this, if you basically, what can happen is if you get a great name and then you do really, really well, and that website domain name is already taken, right? Someone has that. You will find that you do really, really well. You then look at that domain name, and that domain name's no longer a £20 domain. That's like now you're talking £5, £6, £7, £10,000 for that domain, because you became really famous. So that domain become really valuable, and what they basically want is you to go, I need that domain because I don't want someone else to buy it, so you have to go buy it for like 10k, whatever they put the price at, and that's a situation you could find yourself in. So yeah, try and buy your .com, .co.uk, whatever you want to buy, but ultimately, yeah, it's important to have your artist name and your website kind of established and bought and paid for, so you own it before you go and pick that artist name. Because the worst thing what you could do, right, imagine this situation, right, you start your artist name, your let's say you pick an artist name, and then the .com, the .co.uk is all free, and then you start blowing up and someone looks at that .com.co.uk and goes, you know what, I'll buy that for 20 quid. I'll keep it for 5 years, and when he's big and famous, he can buy it off me. And that sort of stuff does happen, and that is something that does happen. So bear all this in mind, and yeah, good luck with thinking up an artist name, because it is really hard, because there's artists left, right, and centre all over the world, and it's very difficult to come up with a name that someone else hasn't taken.